Okay, well, hello everyone. My name is Thomas, and I'm from the Cardano of the Dark project team. And I have a proposal for you today. In the coming 10 minutes, I am going to tell you four things. First, I will tell you who we are as a team and what our proposal is. And then I'm going to sketch out our view on the Gamers On-Chain Challenge and how we want to contribute to it and how we fit in it. Lastly, I will end this talk with some links and more information where you can reach us. And afterwards, of course, it will be possible to answer or ask some questions. So who are we? We are the Cardano of the Dark project. We're a team behind a poker game that we're making. And previously, we were Catalyst funded as well. And we're an open source project that tries to implement a card game on the Cardano Cardano blockchain. The idea is to make a poker game which is thought out by IOG. They wrote a paper called the Kaleidoscope paper, a research paper, where they laid out a cryptographic protocol to securely play a game of poker. And in this protocol, payments are enforced and penalties are also enforced using the blockchain. And this has been an open problem in modern cryptography for, well, a long time. And well, they are the first to really solve it using Plutus, the smart contract language of Cardano. What is our proposal? So we're in the business of card games, and the current market capitalization of card games is pretty huge. And this while the market share of Cardano participation in it is still small. We as a community, of course, want to contribute to this market by delivering high quality decentralized games. Now the goal of these games, the goal of the on-chain campaign is to promote such development, and we fully agree with it. In our view, the Cardano blockchain offers some great technological aspects that create the perfect setting for these distributed games. These mainly are, in our view, the introduction of native assets and the possibility to easily take computation off-chain, especially with games where shuffling is done and a lot of stuff is done. You want cost for performing those actions to be low, so taking computation off-chain is preferable. And all these things can be done without losing the root of trust of the blockchain. Well, in our view, this could lead to a great experience where players can play games in a trustless way without even feeling the use of the blockchain. So we're building a poker dev. And while building some of our core infrastructure, we thought, well, those primitives that we're building could and should be also used by 4 other card games. And this is why we are proposing the following to contribute to the Gamers On-Chain campaign. So we're proposing to make a reusable framework for bootstrapping new card games. And we propose this because it will contribute to the Gamers On-Chain campaign by creating a new base on which developers can build their card games without reinventing the wheel and getting into the nitty-gritty details of the cryptographic derivatives that are stated in the paper. So it's easy to use. This will, of course, ultimately result in more users in the Cardano ecosystem. So that's a nice benefit as well. So our solution consists of 5 main parts. So it's a framework, so it has multiple things that you could use. The first is a JavaScript library for in the browser. This will allow developers that use our framework to create their front end with basic functions like cryptographic shuffling of cards and stuff like that. Also, we'll provide a protocol for enabling the distributed connection among other players. This is detailed in the main part of the Kaleidoscope paper, and this protocol is off-chain to save on transaction costs. And in this, players create cryptographic proofs which other players verify that things are done correctly and if they misbehave, players could always revert to the root of trust, namely the blockchain, to settle a dispute. But this information has to be communicated off-chain. The third part is a basic table, like smart contract. It just emulates a place where players meet on the blockchain and they commit their funds there to play a game. So it's the commitment phase and the end phase, just for bookkeeping. And we'll also provide a backend implementation that connects to a Cardano node combined with a wallet. And lastly, and most importantly, we'll provide extensive documentation. A good thing to note, all of our projects are open source, and without a good documentation, it's not viable. Besides documentation, we'll also provide some how-tos and examples to how to use the framework, of course. And an example will be our POCA protocol. So the auditability, so what should we do? Our goal is, and we're already building it because we're building the POCA DApp as well, to have the framework available by November 2022. And the framework, should have proper documentation by then, so that others could use it as well. And there should at least be one example, a Hello World example. Okay, and how do we measure success? We measure success if one other project uses our framework to bootstrap. So these card games could be poker or blackjack or some other card game. And we also would like, we measure success if the framework gets contributions by other teams, because we want to make it open source and we really want to integrate with the community that uses it. So we want to establish that as well. Then lastly, why is this important? We want to grow the ecosystem of the card games, and this is a great catalyst for that. And also we want to help developers bootstrap things without getting into how the tools especially work. So we want to make it easy for people to use and develop these card games. Lastly, this is the team. You can reach us at any time. We also have a Discord that I highly recommend to join and keep up with our progress. We have extensive, we have good people with a lot of backgrounds, and we're asking for $55,000 US dollar for the fund, and our link to the there's a link for the proposal that you can look at, and reach out to us if you have any questions, or if you want to collaborate, for example. It's good as well. So thanks for listening, and if there are questions.
That's great. Thank you, Thomas. That was under time. We're overrunning a little bit, everyone, but I think we might be going back a bit late. But as Thomas said, if we could now have some questions to the floor on Thomas's proposal for Marcin, would you like to ask the question?
Yeah, Thomas, thank you for the presentation. Nice and clear for myself. Only one question, the same as of Cardano After Dark, the team. So did I get it right? You already have done some dev work on Cardano, or because I don't follow every project, so maybe tell me something about the Cardano After Dark.
Yeah, sure. So our team is quite large right now. Like it's still growing, but what we are doing is, we have a lot of development in the backend as well, and currently we're building out the poker framework, and that's going along, and we're writing in Plutus and making stuff, so that's good. But we also want to provide something back to the community, so we want to extend what we're building and make it more general, so that others could use it as well. And that's why we propose this. I hope that answers your question.
Any other questions that people have?
Yeah, I have another one directly. Sorry, Stefan.
No, go on, carry on.
Since this is a framework, I can only imagine or think that it will be not only poker, but also different games, card games you will offer, like blackjack and so on and so on. So did I get it right? You try to build a casino or something like this?
Not necessarily. Like it's just like in the main part of the Kaleidoscope paper. So the goal is to play distributed card games so that no party can misbehave. So shuffling is done decentralized, and nobody can cheat in that way.
Yeah.
And we build the key derivatives, the cryptographic derivatives for that, so that anybody can, well, shuffle a deck together and use that on chain for any card game. So you could shuffle any card. Like we'll do it with 52 cards for our poker deck, but you could do it with all cards if you want. Like you could use our framework for that.
Okay, perfect.
Right. Is there any other questions on another subject from another person, or? Okay. If I could ask a question, Thomas, on open source, you said it's open source. What kind of licensing do you have for open source, and how are you managing contributions?
Yeah, so we have a GitHub, of course, and I think it's on MIT. So you can clone it, you can do whatever you want with it, but you cannot claim that it's yours.
That's great. So you're obviously building a framework here, which is a very positive thing in kind of given the Cardano open source roadmap. I'm not too familiar with the Kaleidoscope paper and all that. Are there latency issues there between?
That's a good question. Yeah, so one of the key things that is great about Cardano, and I mentioned it a little bit, is that you can take calculation off chain. And this can be done by Hydra, especially. So if you want to do a card game, you want to make it real cheap, can use Hydra for that. And then it's like free. Then there's no transaction cost on it. And on the topic of latency, I don't know if you've read the Hydra paper, but latency is near native speed. So you're not really seeing it. It depends on how many people are connected, because every peer is connected to all the other peers. But in card games, generally you play with 6 to 10 people, so that's no problem.
But would you say that being open source is an advantage in that, because you'll be able to do documentation for testing the latency there?
Yeah.
Is that part of your open source approach? In terms of the contributions.
Well, the reason that we are open source is that we deeply value the open source community, and we want our code to be visible so that others can build upon it.
Yeah.
So if and it should be verifiable as well, because that's the space we're in. So that's a big plus as well. So that's the reason why we are open source.
Sorry for the leading questions about open source. It's an interest of mine.
No, it's near my heart, so I appreciate it.
So that's great. So does anyone have any other final questions for Thomas? Well, thank you for your presentation. That was great, and it's a great project.
Thanks for the stage.
Yeah, welcome.